Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Cassandra Danielle, and today we are talking about one of my most favorite things in the whole entire world, TV shows. Now I know what you're probably thinking. TV shows are your favorite thing in the entire world? That's really sad. And my response to that would be, no it's not. Just because TV is all I watch in my free time, and because it's all I think about most of the time, and it's usually what I try and make conversations out of. Okay, so maybe it's a little sad, but TV is what I'm trying to make a career out of. So even though I'm watching it all the time, I study the acting techniques, I study the different shots that they choose to use, I study the writing styles, I study the lighting and the costuming, and I kind of just study everything about it. So because of that, I have a huge appreciation for tons and tons of people and the work that they do. So I'm going to be talking about some of the best TV shows over the last 20 years. Now I know 20 years is a really long time, there's a lot of different content that's come out over that time, but I'm 20 years old and I think it's interesting to look back at the way that culture has changed through TV over my lifetime. It was really hard to do with all the TV shows that have been out there, but I got my list down to 10 TV shows and then a few honorable mentions. So we're going to start out with the comedies. The first show we're going to talk about is Arrested Development. Arrested Development is a TV show about a formerly wealthy family that is highly dysfunctional. It's a really funny show that was definitely ahead of its time. The comedy style they used was very different than this type of things that we would see today, but also when the show came out, a lot of people didn't appreciate that type of humor, whereas today we would have a much better appreciation for it. As the show has gotten older, it aged very well to the point where even Netflix brought it back for a reboot, and there's no definitive end date yet. So we may still have more seasons to come for that show. The next show we're going to talk about is The Big Bang Theory. The Big Bang Theory is a show that was on CBS. It was about a group of quote-unquote nerds, just a group of adults who have science as their job. And it was about this group of friends. The show ran for 12 years, and it's actually the longest running sitcom. It's always a good laugh. The writing was awesome on that show from day one all the way till the end. I was laughing the entire series. And it also made a really good statement, and it actually helped grow, I think, our culture quite a lot, because back when it came out in 2007, that was still the time when we would watch TV and we would see these nerds being pushed into garbage cans, into lockers, and that type of stuff, being bullied. And yes, we still saw some bullying being done on the show itself, but it brought this type of nerd culture, this geek culture into the light, and let people see that on their screens, and it made people feel okay to come out and be like, yeah, I play Dungeons and Dragons, it's freaking awesome. The next show we're going to be talking about is probably one of the most popular shows of all time, Friends. Friends is a show about a group of friends living their lives in New York City through their early 20s, and it's a feel-good show. It's really funny, and it's really fun to look back through the show and see what pop culture things still are relevant today. The show is so popular that basically if you go to any high school in at least America, there's always kids wearing a Friends shirt. It's one of the staple things when you go to Warner Brothers. That's something you have to see. Gotta be in Central Park. And it's a show that has had a lot of impact through generations. That was it for our list of comedies, and now we're gonna move into the drama, sci-fi, fantasy world. The first show on that list is Veronica Mars. Veronica Mars is a TV show about a young woman who kicks ass and takes names literally. She is a teenage PI who works with her dad, who is also a PI. The show only ran for 3 seasons, unfortunately, but it was so popular that in 2014 they made a movie, and the movie was solely funded by the fans. So because of that, the movie was really a love letter to the fans. It was every little cameo, every little reference, every little thing that you could want from that show was in that movie. But here in 2019, we still love Veronica Mars, and Hulu picked it up for a 4th season. Now we don't know if we're gonna get a 5th yet, but from the reaction that we've gotten so far from this 4th little mini series, it was only 8 episodes, I have a feeling we're gonna get a 5th season, which I'm so excited about. Veronica Mars is a really awesome role model to not just young women, not just girls, but just everybody. She's just absolutely incredible. She's someone who a lot of people will be like, I want to have those qualities in myself. So they see who they want to be in her, which is a really cool thing. She's played by Kristen Bell, who is just, this was her first thing that she ever did, really, and now she is a freaking Disney princess. So it's super, super cool to see how much she has grown as an actress. But the show itself is awesome, and it touches on some really hard subjects that a lot of people, especially back then, didn't really want to touch on. It touched on a lot of sexual assault and rape cases, and also had that teenage steamy drama romance that we all love in those early 2000 shows. The next show we're going to be talking about is my favorite sci-fi show ever. Star Trek fans, don't come for me. Stargate SG1. This is a show about basically an army base and this group of people. They have a captain, a colonel, they have an alien on their team, and they have an archaeologist. And it's this group of very different people, all towards the same goal of basically helping Earth be a better Earth. And this show is really interesting in the way that they use culture and religion from decades and decades that we've been able to see through archaeological finds, and they placed them on Earth that these characters would travel to, and they would be able to teach them the ways that are now and help them grow. They also ran into races that were a little more developed than we are, and they were able to learn from them, and it was a really, really cool show about helping everybody, that we're all the same and we should all have the same opportunities. This show came from a movie that did really, really well. They recasted the characters, but it stems from the same characters that were in the original movie. But this show was so freaking good, around for 10 seasons, and it was so popular that it actually spun off into 3 other shows and 3 movies. One of the shows actually has Jason Momoa in it, which a lot of people know as Aquaman or from his role on Game of Thrones, but I know him from this show in the very early 2000s. Not Stargate SG1, Stargate Atlantis was the show that he was on, which is also a really good show. But this show is still making its impact here in 2019 even. Had a spin-off that came out just last year in 2018. The next show on our list is a show that I love to just sit down and watch over and over and over and over and over again. It is Gilmore Girls. Gilmore Girls is a show about a mother and daughter, 2 fiercely independent women coming up in the world, and the cute little town that they live in, the quirky characters that live in their town and their way of life. It's about family, it's about finding love, it's also about working super hard for what you want and getting it. Most hour-long TV dramas or TV whatever, it usually is about 60 to 65 pages of a script. Gilmore Girls has a very fast pace. It's a very fast-paced show, and actually their scripts were usually between 80 and 85 pages, which is a lot of dialogue, and it's really crazy, and the people that worked on that show are amazing for being able to memorize 80 to 85 pages of dialogue. The show ran for 7 seasons, and back in 2016, Netflix picked it up for a little mini-series reboot. They did 4 episodes. Each episode was about an hour and a half long, and it had great little cameos from all the characters we loved throughout the show, and it just followed their lives for a year. It did it by season, so it did winter, spring, summer, and fall. Those were the titles of the episode, but also the seasons that they were taking place in. The next show is super, super hard to explain. It's called Lost. Lost is a show that was created by J.J. Abrams, and it's even looking back on it, I remember it being such a good show, and I loved the show, and the characters were fantastic. But there's just like a few things that I can remember, like you're like, oh this, I'm like, yeah, but how did that even, like it's so hard, it's so confusing to stay up with when you're actually watching it, but it's such a good show and it really makes you think. And even when you figure out something and you're like, oh, this is what it is, I know it, I know it, I know it, you don't know it because 5 episodes down the line, they'll connect that tiny little thing to something else and you'll be like, oh. But that's so much better than anything I could have come up with, which is why they're the writers and we're not. The show was also very, very real in the way that they cast it. So it was a group of people on a plane. Those are all the characters. They were on a plane together. When you're on a plane, it's not just one anything. There's different body types, there's different religions, different skin colors, different people from different places, and they stay true to what that would be. So it's very realistic in that sense also, which is a really cool thing, especially for back then. That wasn't something that people were necessarily casting. The next show we're going to be talking about is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is about a girl named Buffy who was chosen to be a slayer. This show came from a movie that did horrible. It totally bombed, but the show did really, really well and ran for 7 seasons, giving us tons of characters that we really love. The show was also a huge staple for its time for sci-fi fantasy shows. They did some really awesome things, like the way they responded to the criticism that they would get. So the creator of the show, Joss Whedon, would get told, oh, you know, this show only does well because of the witty and sarcastic humor that you write. And he goes, okay, and did an entire episode where not a single word was spoken, and it's honestly one of the best episodes of TV ever. I think it actually won some awards. It was so chilling and so good, and it's, you know, not something that obviously you could have on in the background because there's no speaking, but just visually it was so beautiful and so wonderfully done. Another thing that he did was people said, oh, you know, you don't get that much emotion out of people by just the writing. It's a lot of the background music that you choose. And he goes, okay, and wrote one of the most emotional and realistic episodes of TV I think I've ever seen. And there was not a single note in the entire episode. And it is so, so cool that that's how they chose to respond to that. It's also a show that had one of the first openly gay characters on the screen, and they actually lost a lot of their sponsors because of that. And they still chose to, nope, this is who she is. We're not changing it even though we're losing money. Also, if you've seen any show nowadays, there's usually a musical episode, and if you love those musical episodes, you can thank Joss Whedon because he did the first ever TV musical episode, and it was so cool. It's still one of my favorite TV musical episodes to watch, and it's such an interesting dynamic. It did take away from the story, it actually added to the story to have the music there, and it's not like the actors were hired to sing, they were hired to act, and so a lot of them were like a little weary about it, didn't necessarily want to sing, and they did it anyway, and it was so good, even though it might not be perfectly on pitch, but it was still so amazing. The next show we're talking about is Smallville. Smallville was a show that was on the WB, and eventually when it changed to the CW, they made the merge, which is great. If you are a fan of any, like, basically any comic book show, so Gotham or The Arrow or The Flash or Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow's, whatever that may be, if you're a fan of that, you have Smallville to thank, because Smallville was the first show that was really about superheroes, and it was about a young Clark Kent before he was Superman. But it was the first staple for superhero shows, because even though he wasn't yet Superman, he was still running around saving people. The show was actually supposed to have its own spin-off called Arrow. Now, if you're thinking what I think you're thinking is, well, there is a show called Arrow. Yeah, but it's a completely different universe. So about a year after Smallville ended, they were thinking about doing a spin-off with the Arrow from that universe, played by Justin Hartley, but they decided to go on a different. different route, and they redefined the character of Arrow and cast Stephen Amell and created the whole Arrowverse. So all of those shows basically came from this show. And if you watch the show Supergirl, when they bring in Clark Kent into that show, his Kent farm is the same exact set as the set from Smallville. So in a way, they have little hints in that show from what's stemmed from Smallville. Now, before we get to my number one pick, I'm gonna go through our honorable mentions. The order that we're gonna go through is just whatever show is the newest to whatever the oldest is. So the first one on our list is This Is Us. The next one on our list is The Goldbergs. The next one on our list is Glee. The next show on our list is Psych. The next show is How I Met Your Mother. Next is One Tree Hill. The next show on our list is Freaks. And the last one on our list is Boy Meets World. Alright, so we're down to our very last show. It's my favorite show of all time. It is Supernatural. Supernatural is a show about two brothers going across the country hunting monsters, and it has gone on for 15 years. In the fall, they will be going into their 15th season. It is a show that is older than the network it airs on. It is on the CW, originally it was on the WB before the merger. It's a show about brotherhood, it's about chosen family. It is an incredible show. The actors on it is an incredible show. They have done some of the weirdest episodes of TV ever that you will probably never see ever again. They did an episode called The French Mistake, and that episode was the actors who played the main characters. So it was the actors Jared Padalecki and Jensen Ackles playing their characters, Sam and Dean, playing themselves, Jared and Jensen, playing their characters, Sam and Dean. Like what? It's the weirdest, coolest thing you'll kind of ever see. They also they do the nuttiest episodes. They've done an episode where the main character died like 100 times. They've done an episode where the show was a musical, not a musical episode. It was a fan fiction musical that someone wrote in the show about the show, because in the show is a book series, and so they wrote the musical about the boys in the book series, or about the book series. I can't even explain it. It's nutty. But when a show's been on the air for as long as this one has, you can kind of do whatever you want. I mean, they even did a crossover with ScoobyDoo. I'm wearing, like, look at this. Okay. The camera's really high. But look, they were animated. This is their car. It was animated. I mean, it's like, it's literally the craziest thing I think a TV show could ever do is a crossover episode with ScoobyDoo. Like, it's so weird. But not only that, I don't think that you can find a fandom anywhere that is going to be as supportive and loving as the SPN family. That's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Leave comments down below as to what some of your favorite TV shows are. If you guys like this video, then maybe I'll do another one talking about some more TV shows, or maybe I'll go super in depth into a TV show about just every single little aspect of it, if you guys think that might be interesting, because I definitely love that type of stuff, but I know not everybody does. I'm gonna be completely honest, I went really in depth into a lot of these shows, and this is the third time I'm filming this because I was interested, but I was like, most people are gonna be really, really freaking bored. So a lot of time went into making this. So I'll see you guys next time. Bye!